Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Salma. I'm a mom of 6, and here we talk about all things related to parenting Muslim kids and being a mom. Today is day 3 of Ramadan, where I'm at, and I don't know what day it's going to be when you watch this, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the reality of Muslim moms during Ramadan. And there are many videos and programs and things that talk about, what we should be doing in Ramadan, the fiqh of it, the rulings, the encouragement, and all these kind of things. But I just wanted to acknowledge, and see all the moms that are out there, because this is what I do. I'm a parenting coach, and I run Muslim parenting support groups for moms. I do some coaching. And I've been involved in the Muslim community for 25 years. And moms have unique struggles, right, in Ramadan. So I just wanted to have a little bit of a space here to address those. And I'll be making a weekly video in Ramadan, inshallah, where we're going to be addressing some of these things as Ramadan goes. I want to kind of do it in real time as we're dealing with these issues, right? And so I want to talk about 3 things that are happening in relation to Muslim mothers, like 3 points to consider. One is our own selves, like our own shortcomings, things that might come up for us as unique humans in Ramadan. Then our children, because we are moms, right? And they are our primary responsibility. So what are the ways that children might trigger us and might make Ramadan more difficult or more beautiful at the same time as well, right? And the third bit is other people around us, because Muslim moms don't operate in a vacuum. We have spouses, we have parents, we have in-laws, we have neighbors, we have work colleagues, and these kind of things. So a Muslim mom is sort of sandwiched between all these kind of things. If you're a single Muslim sister watching this, or if you're a Muslim man who's watching this, you might consider your own needs, right, in Ramadan, your own priority, right? You're just kind of looking to be the best version of yourself. You're looking to, do more ibadah, to do more worship, and these kind of things. But a Muslim woman, or a Muslim mother in this case in particular, she is sort of sandwiched between obligations and expectations of other people towards her, right? And because she's a mom, she has these young children, or older children even, it never stops, right? That have expectations from her, that have a responsibility, that she has a responsibility to take care of. And so Ramadan, it's not just about being herself, like her own person, and doing her own ibadah, but also it's about taking care of her children. And so that makes it a bit more difficult, right? And of course, then she is in this dance, or this triangle between other people as well, because most Muslim moms, have spouses or in-laws or parents that they're, involved with, and Muslim mothers are the ones running the household. So there's usually the tasks that are associated, with food preparation and iftars, suhoors, these kind of things that make Ramadan more difficult, right? And of course, we'll talk about the access to the masajid and, praying in Ramadan and feeling part of the Muslim community. So this is kind of where I just want to address a little bit of that reality. So coming to point number 1, your own shortcomings, or your own self in Ramadan, right? As a person, as a Muslim woman, before you add the mom title to it, right? All of us have shortcomings. All of us have things that we should work on, right? And Ramadan is a beautiful opportunity, to become a better version of ourselves. And so in this case, we have to have the energy and the sort of the bandwidth to work on ourselves. And that it becomes more and more difficult when you become a mom, right? Most of the mothers that I talk to, when I ask them specifically what their pain points are in Ramadan, they will say unrealistic expectations, because they are comparing their Ramadans before they had kids to the Ramadans that they're having now, and it doesn't look like nothing like it, because they maybe used to go for Taraweeh every night, maybe they used to fast, they used to read Quran, so many pages and so many ajza and these kind of things, and now they have children, and Ramadan is nothing like it was before, right? And so sometimes it's hard to just kind of figure out a way to work on yourself while you're taking care of children at the same time in Ramadan, right? And so how can we work on ourselves? How can we be the better version of ourselves? How can we use Ramadan to the fullest, when we are at the same time responsible for other kids, when we're responsible for the household, and so we have to adjust our expectations a lot. And this becomes a big pain point for a lot of moms of young kids in particular, because it's a very lonely experience. A lot of moms also say that they feel very lonely because everybody will gather at the masjid, and everybody will do all these other things as a community. Well, they will feel left out, or they will just have no energy, well, they will be just tired, or well, they're left at home scrubbing the sink and cleaning up after iftar, right? And so becomes very difficult to work on our own selves when we have all these other things that are happening at the same time, right? And so I want to just encourage you, when you think of your own ibadah, of your own personal ibadah, to really, really consider where you're at in life. How old are your kids? How can you adjust your expectations? If you have two little ones, if you have a 2 and a 4-year-old, that is going to be an entirely different Ramadan than if you have teenagers, right? Or if you're just a new mom with a baby. There is moms in the community that maybe just have found out that they're pregnant and they're breastfeeding. How's their Ramadan going to look like? Their priority will be breastfeeding and the pregnancy and taking care of themselves, maybe, rather than standing for hours in salah, right? And so your own personal shortcomings and your own personal ibadahs and your own personal things that you want to work on become much harder to work on in Ramadan when you are a mom, right? And so that's something to keep in mind as you address yourself, right? As you kind of consider when you say, I want to do this better, I want to. And so as I mentioned in the previous video, setting smaller goals, it's really helpful, and just, being appropriate for this season in life, right? And so again, it won't last forever. You will be back at the masjid, you will be back to Quran reading, and your children, inshallah, will be coming alongside of this journey, right? But really be mindful where you're at, and have some grace towards yourself in this month, right? And so again, I'm not saying don't do anything and just be like, okay, I'm a mom, there's nothing I can do about it, but be mindful of the season you are in, right? And so as you're addressing your personal shortcomings, and be very mindful that you do work on yourself, that you don't just put the pressure on, like, okay, how can I, make my kids more pious, or how can I make my kids do all these kind of things? At the end of the day, your good deeds are what matters, right? You will be asked about your actions, right? And so in this season of life, your children are your priority. So how you take care of them during the day is also part of your worship, right? And so being patient with the kids, taking care of them, not being triggered, right? And I'll make a separate video, inshallah, next week, how to stay patient with kids during Ramadan. That's going to be, I think, a bigger topic that everybody wants to know about, right? So that's the first thing, how we're dealing with ourselves in Ramadan as a mom, right? Once we become moms, and once, it's not the same like it used to be. Second point is our children, and this is, I already touched on this, how are we dealing with them? How are we encouraging them? Are we creating an atmosphere of love and mercy and betterment? And, this is a perfect opportunity to reassess, to reevaluate, to change things up in your home, right? To kind of say, okay, this was our pain point. Where was it? What was going on? I was getting too angry. We are fighting too much. There's too many issues. There's no communication in this household. Ramadan is a beautiful time for a reset, right? And because we do spend a lot of time together, most households have suhoor together. Most households will have iftar together. They will pray together. They will go to the masjid together. So there is much more connectedness in Ramadan, which of course also exposes us, where we're vulnerable. If we haven't spent much time with our kids lately, then being together in Ramadan becomes quite difficult, right? And so reconsider the relationship with your children. How can you make it better this Ramadan? While you're, of course, seeking Allah's pleasure, and it's a month of the Quran. But subhanallah, when we are reciting to the ayahs in the Quran, or if we are just competing who's going to read more, are we stopping to reflect on the meanings and how we should treat those around us? So this is a beautiful time to reevaluate your relationship with your children, and then to be mindful how you're treating them in Ramadan and beyond. As you are encouraging your children to do better, as you're making a plan for them, as you are trying to create this atmosphere, try to think of your values, and are those values reflected in your daily life? So the problem with Ramadan coming and us going like 100%, then we don't keep it up, and so we should kind of try to bridge that gap, that our daily lives look as close as possible as our values are, and that is hard. And this is, where we need to be the best example, right? So consider your children. I consider that your children, if they are fasting, that they're really having a hard time, right? That their sleep might be messed up, that they are, and mashallah, they're very eager. They want to be like us, right? Especially younger ones, and they want to participate. But be considerate of their needs. Be considerate that their sleep is messed up, that they might be having schoolwork if they're school-going kids. How can you encourage them? How can you be patient with them? How can you make space for their feelings, right? That they're struggling maybe with the fast, that they're struggling with being hungry, that they're struggling with being tired, that they're, their own expectations of Ramadan. So can you make space for that? Can you just, have a conversation how it was at the masjid if they go to the masjid together? Can you have a little bit of a debriefing? Okay, what happened at the masjid? My girls are always complaining that somebody pushes them out of the way, or, that somebody was rude. And then we talk a lot about, the masjid as a place where everybody is welcome and how we should be. And so we have to do a lot of debriefing in Ramadan, right? And so maybe the reactions, if you live in a non-Muslim country, how are other people reacting to them fasting, or what are the struggles they're going through, right? And so how can you make space for your children where they can express how they're feeling about Ramadan, what their unique experiences are, okay? So point number 1 was dealing with ourselves in Ramadan. Point number 2 is dealing with our children. And point number 3 is dealing with those other people around us. Now, what does that mean? In a Muslim household, usually that will mean dealing with your spouse. It will also mean dealing with your in-laws or your parents, if you live in a joint family. But even if you don't live in a bigger family, you might have a lot of hosting, a lot of dinners, a lot of expectations to, be in the community. And so that can become quite difficult, because there is this cultural expectation that women will shoulder all the work, right? That they will do all the things. And so be mindful of your boundaries. How can you show up in Ramadan, while you're doing all these things, while you're trying to better yourself, while you're trying to help your children be better? What about the daily stuff, right? What about the chores? What about the household? What about these kind of things, right? And so, again, in my conversation with mothers, issues often come up, that spouses are not on the same page, that one of them wants to do something, the other one is not supportive, that there's expectations to be served at iftar time, who wants to have what kind of tea, coffee, what is going on, who is doing all this. So have a conversation with your spouse and, whoever lives with you or whoever is around you. How can you make this Ramadan more doable for everybody, right? How can you be on the same page? I love what one of the moms had shared. She said, that her spouse is going from Maghrib to the masjid, and he's breaking his fast there while she's being at home, and she has a quiet moment for herself. And, the kids are young and they have been fed dinner earlier, so they've figured out a way to make it easier on everybody, right? So be creative here. Have a conversation with your family, how can you make Ramadan in this season of your life easier? Now, I know we have a lot of cultural practices that come, and and culture can be beautiful. Those are all traditions that have been passed on, right? A lot of you remember iftars with your cousins, or with your grandmother maybe, or like some favorite food that used to be made, right? So those are all beautiful memories that are attached, and this is how culture is created. But also be mindful that we live in 2024, and that our lives are different now than they were 20, 50, 100 years ago. And so certain cultural practices can be altered. Food can be altered. Little meaningful things that you do in Ramadan to make it better can be altered, right? And so be creative here. How can you make Ramadan special for you? Maybe it's protein smoothies for suhoor, right? Instead of some traditional food that you're having, right? But keep having a conversation about, memories that you can create, and, your own little cultural traditions that you can create, as long as they're not in clash with Islamic practices, right? And so be mindful how you can deal with other people, right? Because that's where the pressure comes in. There might be pressure from the in-laws, from guests, right, to do certain things. And then when you have these kind of challenges, try to get them on board. Try to get them, to kind of be part of that conversation. Hey, this is a really beautiful tradition, but it's really hard in this time in my life. How can we make it a little bit different? How can we make it better? Because again, as mothers, we are the ones that are kind of in the sandwich between all these other people, right? And so what happens is mothers sacrifice often too much in these years, and then they kind of go the other way. Then they're like, okay, you know what, this is my time. I don't want to have nothing to do with this. So we want to create a balance. We want to create Ramadans that are sustainable for us as mothers, because we're going to be doing this for many years to come, inshallah, right? Like, motherhood doesn't stop. So again, boundaries and a lot of communication around your needs as a mom. What it is that you need. How can you make Ramadans better? So, and to end it, just 2-3 points to consider how it is that you can move forward. Number one, consider dua. Wherever your pain point is at this point, whatever is bothering you, whatever you feel like it's a struggle, turn it into a dua. Turn it into dua, and it becomes worship immediately, right? So if you're struggling with your kids, with their crankiness, with their lack of sleep, turn it into dua. If you're struggling with your in-laws and their overbearingness or like the clashes in the household, turn it into a dua. If you're having a hard time with your rest, with your own personal goals, and you feel like you're inadequate this Ramadan, turn it into a dua. Ask Allah for help very specifically, right? And that becomes immediately part of your conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and becomes part of your worship. Beyond the dua, make sure you rest enough. Particularly as a mom, you are burning on all ends, right? Your sleep is affected. If your children are not sleeping, everybody's sort of low-key cranky. If your spouse has his job and he's tired, and not everybody can adjust their hours in Ramadan, right? And so make sure there's plenty of rest involved in Ramadan, so we're not all going around killing each other in this beautiful month, right? And that's the reality in a lot of households where everybody gets really, really cranky, right? So be mindful of rest. And number 3, ask for help. So it doesn't have to be that the mom is doing everything. You can ask your kids for help. You can ask your spouse for help. You guys can all put the table together and clean it up together. Ask those around you for help. Ask a friend if she can watch your kids one night, and so you can go for Taraweeh, and then you watch her kids the other night so she can go for Taraweeh. Ask for help. Reach out to each other in the community so we can have better Ramadans as mothers, inshallah. All right? I hope this helps, inshallah. Ramadan Mubarak, and I'll see you in the next video next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.